Hey, Senda.
Hey, Phil.
Do you want to talk about porting rules from one system to another?
Okay, so when Phil asks you the question for the show, roll plus funny. On a 10 plus, you come up with a witty line and the show begins with a laugh. On a 7 to 9, you come up with a line and Phil groans, start the show. On a 6 minus, you say something that will haunt you later in the show. I got a 4. Cool.
You want to talk about porting rules from one system to another?
So you mean like using the fatal rules for like...
And welcome to another episode of Panda's Talking Games. I'm one of your hosts, Phil.
And I'm your other host, Senda. And for tonight's topic, Captain Mike asked us, I'm currently running a Star Wars game in which I have one person with Force abilities, and pretty soon they will be going on a quest to acquire the stone that powers their lightsaber. To make the event special and memorable, I'm going to run him through a single star-crossed, where one player will be the crystal and the other one will be the Jedi. My question, do you have any advice for bringing mechanics from another game into your current game? Is this even a good idea? Well, we always have advice.
Always.
Or we wouldn't even be talking about this. As for if this is a good idea, it actually kind of depends on a few things, which is what we are going to talk about tonight. But first, Phil, Definition Panda, what can you tell us about porting rules?
Yeah, so I'm actually going to crib some of my own notes from Misdirected Mark episode 355, where we talked about porting indie mechanics into other games.
You thief.
Yes, but that's okay. I'm allowed to do that. It's my own stuff. So I stole some of the setup information we used in that episode. I'm just going to summarize it here. Right. So porting is a software term, which means the process of adapting software for the purpose of achieving some form of execution in a computing environment that is different from the one that a given program meant for such execution was originally designed for. So to extend this into the RPG world, we're talking about taking the mechanics or a mechanism out of the game it was originally designed for and moving it into another game. And so sometimes that can be really easy if the games have fairly similar rule structure. So porting something from Fate Core to Fate Accelerated, not a big deal. If the two rule sets are more disparate, the port requires a bit more consideration for how to make it work in the new rules.
Yeah, because depending on what exactly you're porting, you might have a very large or a small mechanical impact, right?
Exactly, which is something we'll get into a little more as we get talking. So using porting as our first definition, the next one that I want to add into our discussion for tonight is integration, right? So to form, coordinate, or blend into a functioning or unified whole. Okay. And so the reason I want to bring this term up is because when you're going to use the mechanic that you're porting, you can do it without having to integrate it into the game, right? So it can be a little more standoff, right? Like non-integrated.
Yep. So that is like we were saying in the question, like using star-crossed for the lightsaber building. You're just plunking it in.
Yeah, because you're literally like switching games. You're going to play Starcross and then switch back, right? Yeah. So you're not really transferring rules. You're just kind of porting in Starcross to do this one thing for your campaign.
Yeah.
Okay. Or are you going to merge the ported rules into the rules of your existing game? So like maybe I want to add bennies to my Tales from the Loop game.
Yeah, which you actually are then...
I don't want to. I'm just... hypothetical.
Well, I know, but then with that hypothetical, but then you're actually changing the rules of the existing game to now include and integrate the new thing that you're adding.
Right. And that's a very different thing. And that's important because this concept of integration versus non-integration is important because it does have different effects on your game, how you're going to use them, and some of the pitfalls that surround them.
Yeah. So that gets us to how we want to look at this tonight. And I am going to talk about mechanics that are not integrated.
Yep. And I'll talk about mechanics that are integrated.
Awesome.
So why don't you start us out with, which is really close to Captain Mike's original question.
Yes.
Why don't you start us out with the non-integrated porting of mechanics?
Right. So when you're porting rules into your game, but you're not integrating them with your game, you do still have a few things to figure out and a few issues to deal with. So we still have some tips, like we do, right? And the first one is to get the table's consent first. Right.
Right. No surprises.
Surprises are mean. And then there's a certain amount of this that if you don't get the table's consent on this, then you might have done a little bit of a bait and switch.
You absolutely could be you could absolutely be paddling out into bait and switch territory with this, right? So, trust me, I know why people do this as a surprise, because they want the like that when we were playing Star Wars, but now we're gonna play Starcross, and everybody's like, whoa! But listen, they're going to be like, whoa, when you bring it up, no matter where you bring it up, just don't thrust it on them at the table.
Yeah,
like bring it up before the game or between sessions or something. They'll still be excited about it.
Yeah, they'll still be like, oh, what a cool idea. We're in the middle of playing Scum and Villainy, but now we want to play the backstory of the love of the two characters and how they ended up getting together. Absolutely.
Right?
Been there, done that. Yes.
Absolutely. Okay, what's your next tip?
Right. Sorry, I got distracted thinking about playing yes a lot. Then you have to figure out how you're going to get into and out of the ported rules that you are engaging.
Yeah. So what situation or mechanism triggers you for going into them, and likewise coming out of them? So like in the case of Captain Mike's Starcross game, the conclusion of Starcross, like the playing of a single game, like will get us out of those rules. And when the Jedi goes to find their crystal, gets us into the rules.
Right. I would say, and here's a really common example, is when your characters play a game in the game, and you suddenly engage a different mechanic in the game to simulate the gambling or whatever that they're doing. And suddenly they're engaging with literally another game inside of the game itself. The trigger of that game is that their characters play a game, and you exit the game by finishing however the characters are playing the game, right?
My D20 heist game in the early 2000s, which was about a group of criminals in Las Vegas, always started with them playing poker, and the players would actually play poker for like they play 2 to 3 hands of poker in character.
Absolutely, yeah.
Like just talking, and then like they would just pack up the cards, and like we would, like transition into the full game.
Yeah, I mean that's also awesome.
It was also kind of a neat character ritual, to get into character.
Yeah, totally. A transition.
Because I had an NP, like a GM NPC in that game.
Yeah.
So I got to play as my NPC,
as a character in that. That's super fun and cool. So the next thing that you have to do is figure out how your characters, your NPCs, etc., translate to the other rules. And this is one of those, you told the table ahead of time, right?
Right. Otherwise, you're like either doing it right there, or you've kind of like, if you were bait and switching them, you did it behind their backs. But sometimes you're going to need to translate to the other rules. Sometimes you won't, right?
Yeah.
Like there'll be a little bit of transition for that Starcross game, but the Starcross character and a Star Wars character are really two kind of very different. Like they're mechanically very different, but there'll need to be some representation of that Jedi as one of the Starcross lovers.
Right. I mean, you have to figure out a different thing for the Starcrossed one, which is why can't the Jedi and the crystal be together? Like, what is the tension there? Because that's what Starcrossed is about.
Exactly.
And so, like, you actually have a different question to make that transition smooth in that particular case. But anyway, so you are doing the game switch to create a specific experience in the game that the game itself doesn't cover, right? Yeah. So like don't integrate a game that does the same thing as the game that you are currently playing.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah. You're picking this experience, you're picking this other game to port in because it's providing some very specific experience, right? Like Starcrossed brings that, tension of two people or things that can't be together that ultimately will cross the line and be together.
Yeah.
Like you really got to wonder what's the deal with this crystal.
I know.
Or more importantly, what's the deal with the Jedi? maybe the crystal's courting the Jedi, and the Jedi's the one like
who's like no?
feels like I won't pick up another lightsaber. Like I won't. Like yeah. I could make some stories around that, right? Like here's somebody who like packed it all away like after Order 66 and is like, I'm not a Jedi. I'm just a person going about my life, and then like bumps into this crystal, and the crystal's like, no, like you need to build another lightsaber. You need to like pick up where you left off, that kind of thing. That's the story I would tell.
That would be amazing. I'll play that Starcross game with you. We should do that sometime.
That sounds good.
Anyway, so the other thing that we like to call out here, and this is one that I think both of us have done, which is using something like Microscope to build out the history of a campaign or the intro to a game, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Because Microscope is absolutely a thing that has a very specific focus, right? So it very specifically builds out a history. And if your game doesn't have a mechanism for building out history, like this is a great way to do it.
Yeah, you just
I'll throw another one in.
Yeah, do another one.
I'll throw another one in for the Queen.
Ooh.
Like
for character building?
No. Well, yes and no. But what if you did this? What if you played For the Queen?
Uh-huh.
Okay.
Uh-huh.
And immediately after For the Queen, you started playing Swords Without Master. Like you used For the Queen to make up your swords characters.
Yeah.
And then you actually play a perilous scene with the Queen is under attack.
Oh, that's good. And then you go into like from there you can do a discovery phase, figure out what's going on, and then like go and have the rest of the story.
All of that'll be figured out. If you've played like 2 hours worth of For the
Queen, that's true. You know what's going on.
Like, yeah, like you could just launch right into it, like just right into a perilous phase. Like, do you save the Queen? Do you like, the Queen's not named or anything, so like anyone could finish her off.
Oh God. She's not, is she?
Unless somebody chooses to name her for some reason when they make their characters. Anyway, this free experiment, an experiment we are going to have to conduct one day.
Seriously. Remember that one. So anyway.
Sorry. Hang on. Wow. Okay. I'm good. Go ahead.
Okay.
Tell me about some challenges.
Yeah, there are some challenges you could encounter, right? The first one being players may not have mechanical mastery in the ported rules.
Sure.
Yeah.
That's going to be a problem. It can be a problem. Some players are totally cool, like when they don't have mechanical mastery and don't mind switching in and out of rules.
Yeah.
Other players get very uncomfortable.
Yep.
One of the things they kind of love about games is the mechanical mastery part. And when you take it away from them, they can get kind of anxious about it. So, and they may feel like they're not going to make optimal moves, things like that.
Yeah, and also to do this effectively and to help players be comfortable, like your players have to trust you that you're like not out to get them, right? They're not switching systems to like ooh, gotcha.
Reset them.
Yeah. Yep. Cool. So the other thing is that the ported game may now need some tweaks to work for your specific situation. Like we were actually just talking about how do you create the dramatic tension for Starcrossed between the Crystal and the Jedi, right? Which admittedly we figured out, but it was a conversation that we had to actually have.
Uh-huh.
Because Starcross does require that.
Had to look at it in the opposite direction.
Yeah.
And you need to be careful, right? These tweaks can have mechanical effects on the ported game. So you just need to be a little careful. And we'll talk about that in just a minute with integrated ports about some of these unexpected mechanical things.
Right. And the last one to be aware of is don't overdo this, right? Like if you're porting everything into the game that you're playing, then you're likely not actually playing the right game.
I'll actually call you out on this, right? Like you played Scum and Villainy and ported Yes in like 5 times.
I think we played more Yes than it was either one more session of Yes in our Scum and Villainy game or equal sessions of Yes to Scum and Villainy in our Scum and Villainy game.
Yeah. So like at that point, if you're porting in a bunch of things, it really means that your game is lacking stuff and you don't have a good fit.
I think it actually wasn't a good fit for that specific game group that I play with, but there were also external forces at work. Like we were playing Yes whenever people couldn't make it, so
Yeah.
that also had something to do with it.
Right, but arguably...
we might have been a little bit better at playing the actual game.
Since I talked to you, having talked to you after every one of those sessions, I get the feeling that you guys had more fun playing Yes than you did playing Scum and Villain.
Yes. Not anything. It wasn't anything against Scum and Villainy at all. But in terms of the style of play that we've just developed as that particular group, we do better with something like Yes, where we can just tell each other stories in character and break our own hearts for like a couple of hours.
Yeah, yes. I think Scum and Villainy is probably a tad too heavy for you guys.
It was actually a bit too crunchy for us, yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. Anyway. So let's talk about integrated ports.
All right, so porting rules from one game to another and integrating them into your existing system is more invasive.
Yes.
Right? You're now actually, by inserting these rules, you're changing the design of the game. And so you run all the risks like you do anytime you do game design.
Yeah.
And so here are like a few of our tips about this. Number 1, get table consent.
Oh, it seems like that's a thing that maybe you should just do in general. Like maybe this is just a theme.
Yeah, like don't surprise everybody by just being like, hey, tonight, guys, we're going to put bennies in the game.
Yeah.
Right? Like don't do that at the table. Do that between games, right? Send out an email, post a Slack message or something. Like, hey, I'm thinking of putting this in. What do you guys think? Right? Feel everybody out about it.
Or worst case scenario, when they show up, say, hey, I've been thinking about doing this. How do you feel about it? Instead of
and have the talk before you start playing.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, modify the ported rule to fit your system to make it conform with the rest of the system as best as possible. So what this means is you can't just take the rule out and plunk it right into your game. In a lot of cases, you kind of have to like if you're doing like joints and stuff with wood, like you gotta dovetail these things together, right? Like you have to make these smooth transitions from your existing system into this ported rule. And so you may have to kind of change the rule a little, the ported rule a little, so that it lines up better with your system.
Right. So an easy one for us to talk about is bennies, right? You know, in a lot of games, you can use a benny to re-roll. Right? But if your game doesn't do re-rolls, then maybe your benny is just a bonus and doesn't need to cause a re-roll, right? You still get a bonus from having a benny, but like adding a re-roll to a game that doesn't mechanically allow re-rolls could do weird things to it, and you don't know.
You'll find out.
You'll find out. Then you won't know if it's what you wanted.
Exactly. Which then brings us to the next point, which is new rules always change the mechanical ecosystem of a game and will always have consequences. Sometimes those consequences are good. Sometimes those consequences not as good.
Yeah.
But expect that the second you put the rule in, something is going to change. And if you don't see it right away, it's probably coming down the line, right? Like,
yes. There is no such thing as a rule addition that does not have some kind of effect on the game. It's just a question of when or if you notice. If it's a small enough effect on the game, maybe you don't notice, but also maybe you just haven't encountered the thing that you broke yet.
Right, exactly. Like it might be perfectly fine, and then somebody hits level 6, takes this ability, and then bam-o! Like that, like, you know, super collides, which brings us to our next piece of advice, which is playtest.
Yeah, which it would be good if you did that, like, not at your actual session table, because then you would know if it works or not before you start, you know, shoving it into your standard campaign. But, you know, just like most of us don't always have time, you'll probably do it right in the middle of the session.
Right. Ideally, you need to playtest this rule to see where the impacts are going to be, right? So there's always some sort of small but serious interaction that you're going to miss if you just look at the rules and just be like, wait, I can think this through. I know this game.
Right.
Right? Like, and again, if your game is more complex, so if your game is more of a traditional game and you have more and more rules, more and more character options, more and more special abilities, powers, spells, magic items, etc., the rule change, the chance that it's going to collide with something is greater and greater. If your game is more streamlined, if it is simpler, if it has less rules, less character options, there are less things for your rule to collide and interact with. So if you are porting a rule into something like a 5th edition, like a Numenera, even like Forbidden Lands, you have a much greater chance of running into something than you do something more streamlined like a Swords Without Master, right? Like,
yeah,
where there's like hardly any.
Right. I think I could get a pretty good idea for if what I'm porting in would break something in Swords Without Master or not, because you can see pretty clearly if it's going to interfere with any of the rules on paper, because there just aren't that many.
Exactly.
Right?
Correct.
Like, I can actually think through those.
Right. Nothing beats playtesting, and truth of the matter is you'll probably not do it.
Yeah.
I know this only from experience because I've ported stuff into games and not done this, which then leads us to our last piece of advice, which is be prepared to roll back or remove your change.
Yeah.
So if you put it in and didn't playtest it enough, be prepared.
Yeah, because and prepare your players, right? So you can say like, "Hey, we're going to try this thing." Yes. But then if the rule breaks your game, you can be like, "Hey, I'm sorry, that didn't actually work." And you can pull it back out again. So it's all about setting that expectation up front when you introduce the new mechanic into the game, to be able to put you into a place where you're like, hey, we talked about this and I know that this has been kind of fun or whatever, but like it's totally breaking the game in XYZ way. And so we're going to pull it out and go forward from there.
So we're getting close to the end of the episode, and I want to mention really quick, like my personal preference for this kind of thing is non-integrated rule changes. So taking the campaign, the story or whatever, temporarily moving it to a different system to produce a particular type of effect, like a particular dramatic effect or something like that, and then moving it back into the main system. Like, I think those they can be a lot of fun. And 2, you run far less risk of making your like main game wonky, right? Because you're really just having this like little diversion to like flashback or do this special kind of scene or whatever, and then boom, right back into kind of like the main game and keep it moving.
Can I add a little commentary on that?
Yeah, good.
So there's a thing where if there's a rule that you really like that you're porting into this game, or you're doing it to make a specific change to the game that you're currently playing, there is a question, and I can't answer it for you, but there is a question, which is, are you playing the right game? Mm-hmm. Right? Like if you feel like you have to adjust a bunch of the rules to this game to make it play the way you want it to, is this actually the right one?
Yeah, I think if you're like porting like a rule, I don't think it's like that big of a deal.
Fine.
But if you're like porting the combat system from one game into your game, like then you should probably be talking about like
maybe explore other options.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's my same feeling about house ruling, right? If you've extensively house rule a system, then like maybe there's another system where you don't have to house rule it, right? Like,
right.
And some people like house ruling, some people like porting. Like, there's no wrong, bad fun, right? Like,
no.
You like. If you port it and don't play test it, it's not like you're bad. We're just trying to save you some hassle if it goes sideways.
Yeah, we're just learn from our mistakes.
Sure.
I mean, and the only thing that I will say is if you are playing at a table with all the people that you play with all the time, and you've ported a whole bunch of wild things into your game and integrated them, like, awesome, have fun. If you walk into a convention table and you told them that you were running Savage Worlds, but you've ported a bunch of wild things into the game and integrated them, and then you have to teach a bunch of people who actually already know how to play Savage Worlds how to play with your version, that might be a different kind of issue. Anyway, maybe I'll cut all this. I don't know if it makes sense to talk about.
No, it's fine. We have a few minutes and it was fine. I'm just thinking that I would do the rule I would port into Savage Worlds is GM intrusion, where like I'm going to make a GM intrusion and I'm going to give you all a Benny,
Yeah,
Like,
no problem. That doesn't break it. That's just a conceptual, yeah.
No, but it's technically a rule port where I've modified it because in Numenera, when you do that, everybody gets an experience point. And
Yes.
experience points can be used for rerolls. So I like the Benny.
Pretty similar. Yeah.
Right. Like I'm going to take a hard move here, right? I'm going to just jam up the game, but I'm going to give you all a Benny for it.
Right, to make it easier.
I would totally do that in a Savage Worlds game.
Well, there's a lot of systems that do similar things like that now too, so I think it's pretty easy to adjust them just a little, like make them wiggle a little bit to do what you want. Like if you talk about like Genesis and the final the Fantasy Flight Star Wars system, they have they're the Force and Destiny points. Yep. The Destiny, the Force, the little flippy things that you flip back and forth to control the story.
The Othello pieces?
Yeah, the Othello pieces, right? Dark side and light side, and you flip them back and forth. So, like, I can basically do a GM intrusion, but I have to flip one of them to the light side to do it, and then they have another one that they can spend on rolls. Yeah.
In the Ditch Lilies Road Tour game, if the GM wants the next scene to be a direct conflict,
yeah,
for a character spotlight scene, they have to
put something in the band pool.
Yeah, they have to take a die from their trouble pool and put it in the band pool.
Yeah, that's some of that's like economy of like storytelling. It's a story that's really interesting. We talk about the action economy a lot. We talk about some of the mechanical economies. We haven't really talked about a narrative economy, and that's kind of a thing.
Yeah, there's a little bit of that going on in Ditch Lilies, which when we get into talking about the design of our upcoming game, it is time for us to get out of here and close up the show. And before we can do that, we must always acknowledge one of the other fabulous shows in the Misdirected Mark family of shows. Which one are we doing? You know what? I'll do it.
All right, you do it.
She's a super geek. She's a Super Geek is an Emmy-nominated actual play RPG podcast highlighting women as GMs. Join them every other Tuesday for lots of different RPGs and guests and laughs.
Oh, sometimes laughs.
And feels.
Sometimes feels. Sometimes, like many games, definitely laughs this last couple of weeks because it's been Molgoths versus Visigoths.
Yes.
Which,
laughs and feels is my laser and feelings hack of your show. Giggles. That's it. Giggles and feels is the giggles and feels is my lasers and feelings hack of SAS Geek.
Right.
Not of the games you play, of literally playing
just
SAS Geek.
Yeah.
Say, Senda, where can people reach us on the internet?
Well, you can find us on Twitter at Pandas Talk Games. You can find us on Facebook at facebook.com/Pandas Talk Games. You can find us in the Misdirected Mark forums, where you can still be entered in an awesome contest to win a handmade dice bag, either a Bag Thulu or a She's a Super Geek bag, if you are one of the first 100 people to sign up and you introduce yourself in the introductions forum. Or you can drop us an email, panda@misdirectedmark.com, and Phil, once they find us in one of those places, what can they do with that information?
So very much like Captain Mike did tonight, please send us topics. Let us answer the questions you have. Let us ponder on the things that you wonder about. Let us advise you on the things that you need advice about. We're your best friend. We're your guru, advisor, guide. We're whatever you need us to be. Like we're your confidant, we're your listening, you're in the trust tree. Send us your topics. We'll turn them into shows. We're super good at doing that. We've been doing it for a while. In the trust tree. So send us your topics. We love to talk about the things that you find interesting. Otherwise, we'll sit around and design Ditch Lily games on the mics all night.
Or port a bunch of games into other games, apparently.
Correct. Yeah, that's a thing that's going to happen. If you like what we do here elsewhere on the Misdirected Mark Network, please consider supporting our Patreon campaign. Go to patreon.com/MMP. Patrons of the show get things like the access to our bonus outtakes, which are going to be pretty good tonight. The after show from Misdirected Mark, access to our Slack room. Come hang out with us on our Minecraft server. There are occasional goodies that get sprinkled through the Misdirected Mark Network. Sometimes it's things that Encoded Designs publishes. We just kind of give things out to our backers. And we also like to give shout-outs at the end of each show. And we have 3 such shout-outs tonight, which I'll just do really quickly. Donnie Harville, Lord of the Slack Room.
Thank you, Donnie.
T-Coustic, our Minecrafting friend.
Thanks, T-Coustic.
Haven't seen them in a little while, but hope they're doing well. And Jean Lorbert, thank you so very much for your support.
Thank you.
Say, Sendo, there's another thing people can do if they're already supporting the Patreon or unable to support the Patreon. That would be most excellent. And if you have upgraded your Mac to Catalina, you can no longer do in iTunes. You must do it in what?
Apple Podcasts.
There you go.
Leave us a rating or review. You can even review individual episodes if you really want to, but that seems like a lot of energy. Anyway, every new review we get really does actually help new people find the show, so we super duper appreciate them. And if you leave it somewhere that's not the US Apple Podcast Store, let me know about it on Twitter or email or whatever, because we really, really, really love seeing them. And thank you so very, very much to everyone who has already left a review. They make us feel all warm and fuzzy inside.
Most definitely indeed.
Mm-hmm.
Say, Senda, show me what rules you're going to port into your Swords Without Master game.
So before I was talking about Fatal. This show is a joint production of She's a Super Geek and Misdirected Mark Productions, the media arm of Encoded Designs.
Show me what you got, eh? Show me what you got. Show me what you got, eh? Show me what you got. Show me what you got, eh? Show me what you got. Show me what you got.
Bloopky.
Clicky, clicky. Clicky,
This time-
clicky 2.
I have waveforms
Yes.
instead of an error message.
Yes. There's nothing worse than, I'm going to adjust my mic right now instead of like
Yeah, I totally
before.
did mine too.
Yeah. Like that was good.
Except-
Very professional.
Okay.
Instead of before the show or before hitting
before we started
recording, I like to just wait to get it on the mics.
Yeah.
Oh, blue light. Yeah. Okay, good.
Blue light. It's okay. It's not blinding because it's through the video.
I don't think people. So people don't know that, right? Like the ATR microphone, right? The ones that we use, the Audio Technicas,
It's very bright. They're
have
very
this
bright.
like super bright blue LED where the power is.
Yeah.
Right. It's so bright that anyone who uses it puts it like in a direction like you can't see it. Like yours is pointed down, right?
Well, mine is not only pointed down, I have a little blob of sticky tack over it. Like you can still see it through the sticky tack.
See, I don't even have that. Like
but,
as soon as
but it's not, it won't blind people in the room by accident.
So my hand is like 8 inches above the thing, and like my whole hand is covered in blue light.
Still totally blue. Yeah, it's like a little blue laser light, basically.
Right. And what's obnoxious about it is if you're doing video like we do, if you're not careful with where the mic's rotated in the stand, like
Right.
it points this like stupid bright blue dot at the screen. In fact, right now I have to adjust it because I can see the remnant of the blue dot in my screen.
Yeah, it's not bothering
there.
me.
No.
It just was a little white blue dot. But if it's
No, I saw the reflection of it coming off
the
the monitor.
reflection was getting you in your eyeballs.
Yeah. So that's no good. So yes.
Your eyeballs, the seeing version of earballs.
Right. So for our fellow podcasters out there who have the ATR microphone, you know exactly what we're talking about. And everyone else is like,
yes. Like, why? Why are you going on about the blinding blue light? Because of the blinding blue light.
By the light.
Anyway,
So
do you want to?
Do you want to be my love? Gotta get
with my friends.
Oh,
Make it last forever. That's the way it ends. No, make it something easy. Make it last.
I'm not 100% sure on the words. I
It's been a
definitely know the
while.
song.
It's been a while.
It's funny because it came up.
I just-
It came up in my things from the Flood game.
Oh,
Because
I wanna. There you go. I know those words.
yeah, Leah, the NPC, the hacker, she's
Yeah.
like super into Britpop.
Oh my God, is she really into the Spice Girls?
She's into basically everything. So like every week is like I listened to this song and it like fundamentally changed my life. Like, have you heard Wonderwall? Like,
We have this show
yes. Do you want to do it?
to do. It's a show. Yeah. You know, my cat was doing meows at me earlier, and he was going, "Wah." And I was like, "Are you Phil?"
Oh,
You're losing the meow in the middle.
I just want to do that song. I want to do that sound from Down with the Sickness. Oh, it's gonna be my cat meow from now on.
No, you have to do a real meow. I like seeing your expression.
Okay.
Please.
Yes. Fine. Very well. All right. We ready?
Uh-huh.
Meow. Oh man. I apparently didn't have enough to drink. Shit.
You know I love you for doing this, right? I appreciate you. Okay.
We gotta show. We gotta meow.
Meow.
Bum bum. Dun-dun-dun-dun-dun-dun-dun-dun. There. Now you'll know where that goes.
I liked your stand-in hard musical cut. That was well done.
You'll have no problem finding that in my waveforms.
Bum bum.
What's new, Pussycat?
I knew you were gonna do that as soon as I did it. 7. What's new, Pussycats?
And then it's not unusual.
1. It's not unusual.
Oh, that's probably one of the funniest modern comedy bits ever. If you haven't heard that, people, John Mulaney's "What's New, Pussycat"?
What's New, Pussycat?
Just put that in. You'll be good. Okay, ready?
Yes. Totally unrelated. If anybody has good suggestions for a GM-less parlor LARP for a birthday party, I'm totally on the hunt. Anyway.
Put that in the outtakes.
I'm looking.
Oh,
that's good.
Queens without
queens without names.
Swords without queens.
Masters.
Swords without queens. Oh yeah. That's it. That's the game I want to play. In fact, now that you say that, I may go test that out at my story game Sunday.
Oh, you totally should. That would be epic.
Oh, that would be actually pretty epic.
Well, you can find us on Twitter at... What the fuck? Well, you can...
It's written right on the page. It's right there. You can find us at, see the thing in the parenthesis? At Panda Stalking Games.
No, not stalk. We don't stalk the game.
Try it again. Say, Senda, where can people find us on the internet? Donnie Hartville, Lord of the Slack Room.
No, you have to do it right, though.
Oh, I have to do it in, you know what? I should have just put the HTML brackets for steel around it. Open steel, closed steel.
Closed steel.
Yeah. Show me what you got. Show me what you got. Show me what you got. Show me what you got.
I like your just like artificial hard cuts where you're like, no, don't say anymore. I'm gonna sing now.
So it's bad enough we said it twice in one episode. If you say it the third time, it like shows up on the internet. So.
Fatal.
Oh no. No, you Candyman'd it. Oh no. That's bad. No. You're going to be making characters with certain kinds of circumferences.
No, refuse, definitely not, do not consent. Yep.
I'm not sure. I don't think consent is a mechanic in that game.
No, I imagine it wouldn't be.
I'm pretty sure consent is not a mechanic in that game.
I can not consent to playing it.
Yeah, yes you can.
How about just that? How about no?
That's about all you can do. Just say no. Bloop. On that note, we should probably say goodbye at 46 minutes. We're right on time.
Oh my gosh.
Are you ready to say goodbye?
Okay. Bye.
Bye. Stop.